Hi, I'm Bear, and in this video, we'll be walking through some more advanced ERD concepts. We'll talk about primary keys, foreign keys, and bridge tables. Then we'll go into more detail about how to export an ERD into a database management system. And if you're new to ERDs or need a quick refresher, we recommend watching our first video where we cover ERD entities, attributes, relationships, and cardinalities. Otherwise, we'll continue where we left off with our simple diagram from the last tutorial. So, as you can see, we have entities for customer, order, and product, with the correct cardinalities in between. You'll notice that next to each attribute is the word key. This column lets us distinguish certain attributes as either primary keys or foreign keys. Let's start by learning about primary keys. They're probably easiest to understand if we step out of the diagram and into the table it represents. Remember, each entity in our diagram represents a table within our database. So let's view the customer entity as a table with rows and columns. We've got all these different instances of the customer. And if we're Amazon or something, we've got millions of customers all within this table. Wouldn't it be nice if we could use a single trigger to quickly and accurately distinguish who's who in this massive list? That's where primary keys come in. A primary key is an attribute or field that uniquely identifies every record within a certain table. And since a single attribute can accomplish all of this, it makes sense that we'd need only one primary key per entity. So for this customer table, the primary key is going to be a value that makes this customer distinct from any other customer. And for one of these attributes to qualify, they need to follow a few basic rules. First, a primary key has to be unique and identify with only one record in our table. Second, it needs to be never changing. It'd be pretty difficult to keep an accurate record of our customers if we were using an attribute that could change at any moment. And finally, a primary key needs to be never null. This just means that the value can never be left blank. So if we look at a specific customer like John here, what data could we use to uniquely identify him? Well, we can't rely on names because two totally different customers could share the same first and last name. Like we have a John Smith here and another John Smith here, but they're two completely different customers. So it's not a unique record in the table. We can't even rely on address because two separate customers could live at the same address. Not to mention that a customer could move homes at any time, thus breaking the rule of never changing. A phone number could also change, leaving us with one remaining record in our table, customer ID. By design, any sort of ID is typically programmed to increment for each addition to the table. For example, when this customer signs up, they're assigned customer ID 30016. Then, when the next customer signs up, they're assigned 30017, and so on. We can see how customer ID passes all of our rules. John's customer ID will completely identify him as a particular instance in our database, and that value will never be repeated in this table. So we're good to make customer ID our primary key. While we're on the topic, here's something interesting to think about. Have you ever tried to create a username for an account and then later wanted to change your username to something else? But then you couldn't because the site wouldn't let you? Well, that's probably because your username was being used as a primary key that's in the site's database. And as we know, primary keys can never change. That's how the site is linking you, the customer, to your account. You're not allowed to change the primary key because their system relies on it for accurate records. Or how about when you try to set up a new account and get an error message saying that the username has already been taken? Again, this could be happening because that username is being used as the primary key for someone else, and it's not allowed to be repeated. In our example though, we're just using a randomly assigned customer ID number as our primary key because we know it will always be unique and never be repeated. So let's jump back into our diagram and note this by putting PK for primary key next to our customer ID. And we'll also go ahead and clear out all this other text to make things a little bit clearer. Now, let's apply these same rules to figure out the primary keys for our other entities. We'll jump over to the order table for order entity and zero in on a specific instance. If we look here, we can see that John placed an order to ship to this address at this specific time. So after looking at the data, what do you think we could use as our primary key? We already know that names and addresses won't work, and ship date isn't going to work either. Two orders could be shipped at the exact same time, so that's not a unique attribute. This leaves us with order number as our primary key. So we'll put a PK next to that attribute in our diagram. And finally, we'll look at the table our product entity represents. Let's say our customer John purchased this product here, a new styling pair of Crocs. Well, similar to the unique IDs in our other entities, we'll use product ID as the primary key for our table. And just like that, we have primary keys for each of our entities that are unique, never changing, and never null. By now you've probably noticed that I'm using a diagramming software to modify these ERDs. And while you could make these changes on pen and paper, it's going to be much easier to use a diagramming application. Today, I'm using Lucidchart, and you can too, for free actually. Just click on the link, enter your email address, and you can follow along with me as we continue to make our ERD. Now that we have our primary keys nailed down, we need to talk about foreign keys. A foreign key is the same as a primary key, it's just located in a foreign place. For example, maybe you have a primary key in one entity, but it'd be really helpful to pull that data into another. That's where you get a foreign key. And we want to note these foreign keys so we can better understand how our entities relate to one another. So let's see how this plays out in our diagram. We've already established customer ID as the primary key for the customer entity, but that same attribute is also over here in the order entity. Why? Because for each order, we want to know exactly which customer placed that order. The order entity is simply referencing the customer ID from the customer entity. That makes it a foreign key here, so we'll mark it as such. And we can further show this relationship in our diagram by adjusting the relationship to line up with the primary and foreign keys. Just move these crow's feet to line up the PK and FK attributes. It just helps visually reinforce the fact that the foreign key in the order entity is referencing the primary key of the customer entity. Let's review how this foreign key works by looking at it in the order table. So here are all of our orders. If we look at this specific order, it has a customer ID of 30016. This is a foreign key because it references the primary key in the customer table. Because of this, we know exactly which customer we're dealing with when we look at this specific order. So John made this order here. But if we look farther down, the same customer ID is repeated because John placed another order. Unlike a primary key, a foreign key does not have to be unique. It can be repeated inside a table. And if John's an avid shopper, his customer ID is going to be repeated a lot. Another difference between primary and foreign keys is that it's possible to have multiple foreign keys in one entity. Let's say that for each order, we also want to know what product is being sold. We'd add product ID to our table, and this is what it would look like in our diagram. We just add another field, type in product ID, and since product ID is a primary key over here, that makes it a foreign key in this entity. Now we have two foreign keys in our order table. Now there's also something called a composite primary key. Composite primary keys are used when two or more attributes are necessary to uniquely identify every record in a table. So let's say we created a shipment entity and it's got these attributes here. And then let's take a look at what the corresponding table might look like in order to explain this a little better. Let's say John ordered a classic pair of Crocs and then a pair of Croots. It's all one order, but they're getting sent in two different shipments. And when we look at these two rows and each of these attributes, we wouldn't be able to rely on any single one to give us a unique record. The product number is duplicated when someone else buys that same pair of Croots. So it's not a unique record in this table. An order could be parsed into a couple different shipments, like John's was. So order number is also not unique. Charge card time would be duplicated if someone else pays for their shipment at the exact same time, and same for packing time and ship date, all not unique. So it doesn't look like any of these attributes will give us the primary key we're looking for. But what if we took two of these attributes and combined them to create a new unique value, like product ID and order number? Take those two values for any instance, combine them together, and you've got a value that won't be repeated. That's a composite primary key. Now, the primary key for this shipment is different from the primary key for this shipment. You could technically call this a compound key because we're combining two foreign keys, but usually people just say composite key as an umbrella term. Anyway, jumping back over to our diagram, we'll note a composite primary key with multiple PK marks. This doesn't mean there are now two primary keys. It just means that both of these attributes are needed to create a composite primary key. Here are two rules to follow when creating composite primary keys. 1, use the fewest number of attributes as possible. And 2, don't use attributes that are apt to change because that can make things messy. Now, you may be asking, why not just create a shipping ID attribute so we don't have to deal with this kind of scenario? Well, the answer is that we could, and it would be totally valid. In fact, there's actually quite a debate as to whether or not composite primary keys should ever be used. But ultimately, it all depends on the database being built, and if you think there'd be a scenario where a composite primary key just makes more sense. Something else we should talk about are bridge tables. When we're building an ERD, we should be asking ourselves if there's anything else that should be recorded into the database. For example, there may be times where we have two entities connected to each other with more happening between them than is currently being shown. That's when we use a bridge table. To illustrate this point, we're going to strip down our diagram to customer and product. Now, couldn't we create a direct relationship between these two entities? I mean, a customer could purchase 0 or many products, and a product could be purchased by 0 or many customers. And sure, conceptually that would work, but if we set it up that way, we wouldn't know when a customer purchased the product. And we also wouldn't know if they purchased the product all at once or if they returned at another time to buy more. In fact, there's a lot of information we'd be unable to see. This usually occurs when we have a many-to-many relationship, and that's when we need a bridge table. Bridge tables allow for an intermediary one-to-many relationship and help us view the information that we're lacking. In this example, a bridge table would be the order entity, so let's move it back into our diagram. Now, we can see how it breaks up the many-to-many relationship and how it provides us with the information we were originally missing. And if we wanted to get even more specific with our ERD, we could add data types for each attribute. This is especially helpful when we're planning on doing some programming from our diagram. So we'd use an entity shape with 3 columns, and we'd specify the type of data we want on the far right side. For customer ID, we'd return an integer. That will give us a number like 501422. And all these other attributes will be varchar, meaning we can use various characters, and then set a character limit in parentheses like this. For example, the standard phone number consists of 10 digits, so we'd place the number 10 in parentheses here. There are several other types of data that we won't get into, but just know that we could include these in our ERD if we wanted to get more technical. So now we have a lot of detail to our ERD, but what are we actually going to do with it? Well, like we've mentioned, ERDs are a great way to conceptualize and visualize before actually building a database. But once we've finished building our ERD, we're going to need to translate it into a database management system, or DBMS. Typically, we'd have to frequently reference this diagram and then manually enter code to create the database. Well, that's going to be a lot of work and can be extremely time-consuming. But with Lucidchart, we can export the diagram and it will automatically generate the code we need for our database. Here, we can see the table command with the entity it's referencing. We can also see the attributes for this entity with the data parameters that we set. It even shows our primary and foreign keys. Then we just specify which database management system we're going to be using, copy the code, and paste it in. Just like that, our database is ready to go. Conversely, if we already have a database that we've created and we want to visualize it, we can. We'll just click here to import the database, and then Lucidchart will populate all of our tables. Then, as we drag each one out, Lucidchart automatically creates the entity with the appropriate attributes, primary keys, and foreign keys. Better yet, if we drag out another entity, the correct relationship will automatically connect between them. That's huge! Lucidchart makes it easy to quickly visualize our database, make changes to it, and then export those changes back into our database via code. As always, thanks for watching the video, and be sure to check out our next video, where we share even more information about how to build ERDs in Lucidchart. And if you're interested in learning more ways Lucidchart can help you visualize your data, check out training.lucid.co. As always, happy diagramming.